Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome back to Monday Chit Chats. I hope you guys had a really good weekend. In Paris, we finally had a beautiful sunny weekend. It was actually so hot this weekend and last week, I don't know, probably the hottest it's been this year. And that was the first thing that I even wrote down for podcast topics was when I went to the gym on Monday, Tuesday, literally every day this week, there was no AC, which is not something that I was expecting because it is so rare to have AC anywhere in Paris and probably Europe as well. But I had the realization that all of my workouts for the next 3 months are going to be done in extreme heat. And it also got me thinking as well. I mean, it's obviously all over the news, probably, I don't know, globally. But a lot of the countries that have their athletes coming for the Olympics are also bringing AC with them, like portable AC machines, because the Olympic Village doesn't have air conditioning. And I see so many mixed opinions on this. I see outrage that the athletes don't have these or don't have the conditions that they need to be at peak performance. And then I see the other side of, it's just not the norm in Paris or France, and it's not great for the environment. And you know what I thought about it? I really do sympathize, I think, with the athletes coming from countries that are so used to having a colder atmosphere, not even necessarily a colder climate, because in Canada it's pretty similar to the temperature that we have in France and stuff, with the exception of course, Canada I find is much more green. There's a lot more green spaces, which even if it is a hot temperature, it sort of feels breezier and more refreshing than Paris, for example, which is 99% concrete. But yeah, all the athletes that are coming from these countries, I think the top 3 countries that I saw bringing air conditioning was the US, Australia, and Canada. And when your body is used to it, it can feel really shocking to have to live in such a hot temperature. And it really is hot, especially in Paris. I remember probably 2 years ago, I got up in the middle of the night at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you would expect the city to cool down and stuff, but because concrete and all the materials that are used to build everything in Paris retain heat as opposed to releasing heat like trees and everything, it doesn't even cool down at night for the most part. And so, yeah, you just have hot throughout the entire day. You're hot at night, hot during the day. And my point is, it can be very shocking if you're not used to that. I think a lot of tourists who come here, for a couple weeks and don't have access to air conditioning really feel it. But the thing is, we're so used to it. People who live in France, in Paris, in Europe for prolonged periods of time acclimatize to the environment. I was thinking last night, actually, it was cold. It was a cold summer night for once. And by cold, I mean 26 degrees. We have a little thermometer in our bedroom, and it was cold enough for Jean and I to sleep with our comforter, our winter duvet. Okay, so that's how much I've become used to this hotter temperature. It doesn't even faze me that there's no AC. But on the other end, when I go home to Canada in the winter and it's -15, -20, I am freezing. I actually am frostbitten freezing when I used to live in Ottawa and Toronto and I had those colder winters. I would be going to work in my nylons and my little wool coat, just not even realizing that it was cold, So I get it. I get why the athletes need air conditioning if they're not used to those hot temperatures. But actually, this week, I think it's supposed to be a little bit cooler in the evening. Like I said last night, we slept with our duvet. So it's pretty good sleeping conditions, I would say. But I thought that was pretty funny. And it really is not a myth. It is so rare to have air conditioning in France. I have lived all over the country. I've lived here for 8 years. I've lived in several different family homes. Never once have I had air conditioning. Literally not once, ever. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. And on the topic of the Olympics, it is happening. I don't know if you guys saw the vlog that I posted on my main channel, but the city really has completely transformed in preparation for the Olympics in a lot of positive and maybe more restrictive ways. You could say the very first thing that you notice when you walk downtown Paris, like at the moment, the only barricades that you'll see are the barricades for the Olympic ceremony, which kind of run along the entire Seine. You have a gray zone, which is directly along the Seine. You can't access it on bike, on foot, by car. And then a little bit further out, you have the red zone, which you can only access on foot or by bike, which is actually really nice because it means that Paris is kind of a carless city, at least the downtown part of it. And so we actually went to the Marais this weekend to do some shopping for the sales and stuff. And it was amazing. It was just literally pedestrians. You could walk on the streets. You weren't crowded on the sidewalks. It felt so amazing. I wish Paris was a carless city. But on the other hand, I don't think there was a lot of communication that was put out. I mean, if you watch the news, if you're regularly checking the town hall websites and stuff, or the City of Paris website, then you're probably pretty up to date. Like when I made my video on all of the closures, I obviously read through 100 different articles and watched so many different news programs about it. But generally speaking, John and I don't watch a lot of TV. We don't watch the news. And so there were still a couple things that surprised me. One of the things that I noticed was they have they're the lanes. I'm like, what is the word? They have the Paris 2024 lanes, car lanes, that are supposed to be only used by Paris Olympic officials. But the thing is, the Olympics haven't started yet. They've already started to enforce the rule that lane can only be used by Paris 2024 vehicles, and people have gotten fines, and not just cars, but bikes as well. And this was so controversial. I saw several news programs about it where they interviewed both police and bikers, because these Paris 2024 car lanes are what typically is the bike and bus lane. And it's very safe to bike in a bus lane because the buses are used to it. They're very careful, and there's not a lot of buses compared to the amount of cars. There's not a lot of buses. And so it's very safe when you're biking, but with these new lanes, bikers have to bike alongside cars who are driving fast, who are not paying attention, and who generally don't love the bikes. There's a lot of complaints from cars and taxis that the bikers kind of take over the city, and people who are driving can't, the people who drive are sick of bikers taking up lanes or taking away lanes from the cars. And so anyways, there were bikers that were getting fined for biking in the Paris 2024 car lanes. And they were they were upset because it's so dangerous to bike in the same lane as the cars. It really is just so dangerous. And the police were also like, yeah, this is dangerous. We will, send the information upwards, but for the moment we have to fine all of these bikes. But yeah, people were losing it because you have to remember, I mean, not you, but just in general, even though the Olympics are such an amazing event, there are still people who are living in the city and who have to bike to work, who have to bike to get their groceries and stuff. And so I think it is really inconvenient for people to not have access to their primary method of transportation. So that was one thing. Another thing that shocked me was all of the barricades. It's insane how many barricades have been put up. And it really is, you are like, people who are downtown, you're herded into these enclosed sidewalk spaces. And when I say herded, it's because it's just masses of people walking side by side in the same direction. And there's such limited space because if you're walking along the Seine, the side of the Seine is completely closed. So you only have access to one enclosed sidewalk. And that's for the entire flow of pedestrian traffic downtown Paris, especially along the Seine. And yeah, it felt very claustrophobic. I filmed a little bit there for my vlog, but I I did not want to walk all the way down the Seine like that. It was really uncomfortable. And also the entire Seine is blocked up, which was so surprising. There's obviously a lot of stands that have been set up there, I'm assuming for the opening ceremony. But yeah, you cannot access the Seine. You can't walk or sit along the Seine, which is also something that's very different. I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for the rest of the summer. I do think that the opening ceremony was kind of the biggest setup, at least when I was doing my Olympic closures video and I was reviewing all of the different areas that would be closed off. It looked like the Olympic ceremony was the biggest amount of barricades and closures, especially concentrated in one area, because yeah, you have different events all over the city and stuff, but it's just one day where that area is closed off and it's not a huge concentrated area along the Seine. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. But at the moment, I really am loving the carless downtown Paris. I think that is fabulous. Oh my gosh, another thing too as well that I noticed was the huge police presence. That was the very first thing that I noticed when I got downtown. It was police cars and police patrolling absolutely everywhere. And even when I wasn't filming that vlog downtown, I was doing some groceries at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, just randomly popped out to get milk and eggs. And while I was at the checkout, 6 armed, like a patrol group of 6 armed policemen walked into the grocery store just to casually patrol. And I was shocked because I don't live in the very epicenter touristic part of Paris. So it was very surprising to see that in a grocery store of a residential area. But yeah, I truly felt so safe when I was walking downtown Paris. And not just that, but it was so obvious that there were no pickpockets. It's so common when you go anywhere that's remotely touristic in Paris to see the pickpockets. Like truly, it is a daily occurrence to see groups of pickpockets. And it's a little bit strange because they're so easy to identify, not just as a regular Parisian, but even when you're in the metro, very often you'll hear the conductor of the metro come on the speaker of the metro, or even the ticket attendants who are at the desk of the actual metro station. They'll come over the PA system of the entire metro system and say, beware, there are pickpockets on the platform number 9, make sure you watch your bags. Or, oh, there's pickpockets that have just gotten onto the metro. Make sure you're very aware of who's around you on this metro. And the thing is, it's a little bit confusing because they're so easy to identify. Everyone identifies them. They make announcements warning you of them. But there's very little intervention, or at least from the outside perspective, you don't see a lot of intervention from police or from the metro system security, but they clearly have intervened for the Olympics. And so I'm hoping that even after the Olympics, they keep up the same level of security when it comes to pickpockets, because it really is such a problem. And I think it's so unfortunate for tourists to have their trip ruined or tainted by being pickpocketed, especially when it is something that can be, better protected against, I think. Another thing that was so interesting, I actually watched so many different news programs last week, but there was one program that was talking about how there are even less tourists in the south. So in Paris, there is a lot of discourse about not having a lot of tourism at the moment. You have a lot of different restaurant owners and bar owners who say that, quite frankly, they are shocked by how much their clientele has diminished surrounding the Olympic period. And not just that, but the hotels as well. They haven't even come close to reaching their capacity. There's also a couple million tickets to the Olympic Games themselves that haven't been sold yet. So if you haven't got your tickets, now is the time. I'm pretty sure you can find them for as low as 30 or 40 euros, depending on the game you want to see. But yeah, these news reports are talking about how this lack of tourism even extends to the south of France, where there isn't a lot of Olympic activity outside of Marseille. And I would assume it's because people don't want to go somewhere that they feel will be crowded or will be closed off, which I think is normal. Like for me, I have never had any interest in traveling to a country where there were the Olympic Games. It's nothing against it. I just personally know that I would feel overwhelmed by the amount of people and the amount of barricades. I just feel like it would be a really tough trip to do unless you're really passionate about the Olympic sport. And so yeah, it was very interesting. And I was thinking that'd make a really good video as well, to take a train to the south of France and go see for myself if really there are no tourists, if the beaches are as, sorry, plage is beach in French, but if the beaches are as empty as they're saying. I think that'd be interesting to go and report on. So I might go do that. Okay, moving on from Olympics topics. I have to tell you guys about a moment I had last week that revolves around the etiquette of paying a bill when you go out with friends. So I want to tell you a story, and then I'd be interesting to know your take on it, your opinion. So basically, I went out with a couple friends last week, friends and friends of friends, people that I've seen around but aren't necessarily my close friends. We went out, we did a little activity, went to a little bar, and at the end, it was time to pay. And personally, I am someone that will always offer to pay, that will always pay people back immediately. I hate owing people any type of money. I hate feeling like someone has paid more for me. Like I don't ever want, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I don't like feeling like I haven't paid my fair share or that someone's covered me. And anyways, so I'm always on it. Like if someone else pays, they are getting a text message from me within 2 seconds being like, what do I owe you? What's the best way to pay you back? That's just the way that I operate. And so when we went to this little event thing, we got a round of drinks, and then one of our other friends bought a round of drinks. And as soon as I saw that that friend was finished his beer, immediately I went to the bar and I ordered him one, because I'm like, okay, you bought a round of drinks, I'll buy you a round of drinks. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. I'm very on it when it comes to paying people back. But at the end, we had to pay for the actual activity that we were doing, which was, it was kind of a lot. I guess, okay, it was 60 euros. And we had to divide that up between everyone, but 2 people essentially had to pay that bill. So I paid it and one of our other friends paid it. And so at this point, we've consumed a couple rounds of drinks. We've done this activity that we've had to pay for. And I've paid quite a lot because I paid for the activity on top of a round of drinks. We had another friend who paid for a round of drinks, the one that I told you about, and then he immediately offered to pay me back. But I was like, oh, I know I'm going to see you next week. Just, you can pay for me next week. We'll call it even. But then there was someone who didn't pay for a round of drinks, who didn't offer to pay for the activity, and who didn't send a message to pay anyone back. And the reason that this was shocking to me is because the same person had spoken quite a few times throughout the night about how they were earning a lot of money. And so I think it is a little bit strange to talk about earning a lot of money, but then behind that expect everyone else to pay and not even flinch when it comes time to pay a bill. Because the thing is, I wasn't sure about paying the bill for the actual activity, but the thing is, the bartender was like, okay, here's the bill. How are we paying this, folks? And when people don't offer to pay, I will just do it because it's so awkward. I don't know. It's not that it's awkward, but it's like, okay, someone has to pay this bill. If no one's going to offer, then I'm assuming you're going to offer to pay me back. I'm sorry, this is a very long-winded way of explaining the situation, but it was so strange to me. And personally, I would just never want to be that person that's known as someone who talks about earning money, but then has all of their friends pay for everything. I don't know. I think that's so strange. And I wasn't the only one that noticed it. A couple of our other friends noticed it as well. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's not a huge amount of money. The activity was 30, the round of drinks was 30. Like, it's not a huge amount of money. But I was also surprised that this person didn't follow up afterwards and, you know, offer to pay back his portion or their portion. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the paying etiquette for groups. Maybe, I know I've talked about this before and I do have like so many different mixed answers when it comes to this, but in France it is very normal. We have so many apps that facilitate this. We have two apps in particular. One is called TryCount and one is called Lydia. So TryCount, you put in all of the costs that everyone accumulates, and then the app automatically tells you what each person owes. So it's very common in a friend group to have a TryCount, and that's how you would keep track of who owes what. And then Lydia is a way to send money with just a phone number. You don't need to do a bank transfer. There's no fees. You literally just need someone's phone number and you can transfer the money within 0.1 seconds. So it's so easy to pay people back. That's why it's very normalized in the culture here, in the going out culture, in the friend culture. It's really not a big deal to have one person pay and then split the bill afterwards. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, but I was very shocked by that. Okay, something else that I also need your opinion on is we are finally tackling the bedroom. We are finally starting to transform our bedroom space. And I say this like it's some big project because it really is. Our bedroom is 3 white walls and 1 giant window. There's no personality. There's no storage. It is a mess. And so it's very exciting to be finally decorating and, like I said, transforming the space. But yeah, I'm a little bit nervous in choosing the color palette and the design, everything. I'm sure it'll come together at the end the same way that our living room did. It was stressful picking where to put the shelving and where to put the TV and the couch. But once we added each piece by piece, it really did come together beautifully. So what I want your opinion on is I bought the bed sheets that Jean and I have been talking about for a year. We decided a year ago that we would switch to green linen bed sheets and that we would paint the wall a certain yellow mustard. Not the entire wall, but I have a design in mind. We're going to do green linen and a pale yellow mustard on the walls. However, the reason we waited a year to get the linen sheets is because I wanted to wait for the summer sales, which are really, really good. In France, the sheets that I got were 50% off, which is quite a big amount of savings. You really wouldn't get that, typically throughout the year. So that's why we waited a year. However, because the sheets were on sale, I couldn't exactly get the color I wanted, which was a khaki green. Instead, we got a coastal turquoise blue. I'm going to put a picture on screen so you guys have the visual. What I'm wondering is, I don't think the mustard yellow is going to go with this coastal turquoise blue anymore. I'm thinking maybe more of a sand beige beachy color, maybe a green. I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on the color. Another thing as well that we're going to add to the wall is this puzzle. I'll also put a picture on screen. It's this really cute bed breakfast themed puzzle that we found in a store this weekend. And our idea is to obviously build the puzzle, but then frame it and also hang it above the bed to the side or whatever. So this is our current color palette. This puzzle and these bed sheets. So I would love to hear any ideas you have, any other colors that we can add to the palette. Truly, I really would love your opinion. And I'm honestly so excited to show you guys. I'm still working on our apartment transformation part 4. If you haven't seen 1, 2, or 3, I will leave them linked down below. But it feels good. This is kind of like the bedroom is the last part of our apartment transformation. And then we'll have our dream apartment. And then the last topic, of course, is the summer meetup that happened last weekend, 2 days ago. And it was honestly so fun. I don't even have the words for how amazing it was. This was obviously the first meetup that I've organized, so I had no idea how it would go. But what was so surprising to me is that it literally felt like being with a group of friends. And it was crazy because it was so diverse. Like, we were such a diverse group of people. We had no one from the same country. We had Canada, the US, Algeria, India, Hungary, and the Dominican Republic. But even though we came from all over the world, it literally felt like being with a group of friends. Conversation was so easy. There were never any awkward moments. It was interesting conversation. Like, it wasn't superficial conversation either. So that's what I'm saying. It really felt so nice. And I was really happy because I felt like it went well. And something else actually that Jean pointed out, because he did come, I needed help carrying everything over to the park. But he pointed out as we were walking home that no one was on their phones. No one. Which is crazy because we sat in that park for like 5.5 hours, and we just were talking and having a good time. Like, time flew by. And at the end of it, I forget who said it. It might have been Ashley, but she was like, oh my God, we didn't take a photo. And I was like, I didn't take a photo. I didn't take a video. And so at the end, Andy had actually already left, which I felt terrible, but we just took a quick selfie, and that is the only photographic piece of evidence that I have of this summer meetup. But I think that's a testament to how nice it was to be in person with this group of girls. And actually on the way home, because I had such a good time, I was already thinking about the next event that I wanted to plan. I was thinking that we could do another meetup in the winter, maybe an activity like bowling or pool. I don't know. I gotta think about it, but I think it'd be fun to do an activity together. And it was so funny because getting up to the actual day of the summer meetup was obviously overwhelming because I was doing a lot of planning, a lot of shopping, but also a significant amount of people canceled last minute, which I get it, life happens, things come up and people have to cancel, but a lot of people canceled at the very last minute up until like 12 hours before the meetup. And so to get those emails of people canceling, which honestly is great as well, like it was really nice, I think, that people also emailed to tell me that they were canceling. But just to get the slew of emails of people canceling last minute really made me feel discouraged in the moment. And I turned to John, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I'm never going to do this again. But it just the complete opposite. It was so much fun. I cannot wait to see you girls again. I can't wait to organize another meetup. And I hope as well that more people can come out, and anyone who couldn't make it to this one maybe can make it to the next one. But yeah, it was awesome. I had the best time, and yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Let's get to the questions because there are quite a few. I went to bed last night. There was one question. I woke up. There were 7. So let's get into it. The first question is from Kareem. He says, how was your picnic? Sorry I couldn't make it. My sincere Canadian apologies. No worries, Kareem. Hopefully the next one you can come. But like I said, it was amazing. It was so much fun. And Kareem also asks, what's the mood like for most Parisians as the Summer Olympics kick off this Friday? I think people love to complain, and I feel like that's mostly what I'm seeing in the news and on social media. I would actually say it's surprising because I think that's the only attitude that I'm seeing, and I completely understand why people are feeling more negative about the Olympics. Like I said, there's so many things that have been put in place that really limit your day-to-day, which can be kind of annoying. So I think for the moment, as soon as the barricades came up, as soon as bikers and cars started to get those fines for being in the Paris 2024 lanes, I think and as well the restaurant owners, the bar owners, the hotel owners who are talking about how they aren't reaching their typical summer capacity or the normal amount of sales that they do. So yeah, I think that for the moment there is a little bit of an attitude of being annoyed and irritated by all of the inconveniences. But I do think that once the Olympics kick off and once we see all of the great things that have been planned, all of the performances, all of the athletes, I think that people's spirits will perk up, hopefully. Next, we have a question from Fatima who says, can you make the summer meetup date a year in advance? I wish I could do that, but I think it's really hard, even like not just for me, but for everyone to plan an entire year in advance to reserve one day. I feel like the only thing people do that for is weddings, such a huge event. So I think that planning a year in advance will be complicated, even for myself as well. It's hard to know where I'll be exactly on a specific day in the summer, especially sometimes I like to travel home in the summer to go to Canada, but I don't even know my flight dates until closer to the summer. So I do think planning a year in advance would be challenging, but I can plan maybe a little bit earlier than I did this year. This year I sent the first survey out, I think, in May. I can send something out a little bit earlier, I think, as well. But also I'll try to do meetups twice a year. Like I said, one in the summer, one in the winter. But yeah, I'll see what I can do about organizing a little bit more in advance. I think just in general, it's really hard to commit to a date so far in advance. Kate says, can't wait for the dressage at Versailles. I mean, what a backdrop. Girl, I agree. It looks stunning. It looks so beautiful. I kind of wish I had tickets to go see. I might go look online and see if there's anything available, because it really does look just so serene, so majestic. I'm jealous. If you have tickets, I'm jealous. I would love to hear how that goes. But yeah, that's what I mean is, at the moment there is a little bit of negativity around the Olympics, but I think that once we get into the swing of once we get into the swing of things, once we start to see the activities being done in these beautiful spaces and the amazing athletic performances, I really think it will be very exciting. Another activity that I'm excited for as well is beach volleyball, which is on the Champ de Mars. You have the Eiffel Tower right in the background, which is so special. Another thing as well that I am really trying to get tickets for, affordable tickets, is the martial arts. I believe it's Taekwondo that's being done. Taekwondo or karate, oh my gosh, don't kill me. I don't know the exact name of the activity, but it's being done in the Grand Palais, which is very rare that you have access to, and I would love to go just to see the inside of that building. Obviously, it'll be fun to see the sport as well, but if I can find, tickets that are available, I wouldn't mind going to see something in the Grand Palais as well. But yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be great. And like I said, I really am going to try and vlog the sports that I go to show you guys what everything looks like. Scott says, what are the places in France you haven't visited yet but want to go? And I love your videos. Thank you so much. I actually made a list so that I wouldn't forget anything. I've lived kind of all over the country. I've been to a lot of different places in France. I really make a point of traveling throughout the country of France and not just focusing on other countries in Europe, because France is such a special country in that at every corner of the country you have a different climate. You have beaches and mountains and colder temperatures. You really do have everything in France, and so I think it's important to make a point of trying to see it all if you can. The two places that I haven't been yet that I really want to go visit, number one is the Gorge de Verdon. It's a canyon, I believe, with really beautiful water basins, water river lakes. I'm sorry, I don't know what the word is, but canyons with access points into beautiful turquoise blue water, and it's a place that you go as well to do some hiking. And it was so close to where I was doing my studies. I studied in Aix-en-Provence. It's like an hour drive from the Gorge de Verdon, and I always regretted not going. And it's like I said, when I was doing my studies, I was so focused on my studies that I absolutely did not travel at all in the south, which in hindsight I kind of regret. But that is a place that I would love to go back and visit, do some hiking, do some swimming. And another place that I've never been, which might be surprising, is Strasbourg. And I want to go, not for the Christmas market, as special as I think that would be. There are tons of Christmas markets around France. Even though Strasbourg is one of the most famous, it's also definitely the most crowded and the most expensive to visit, because the trains, the accommodation, everything skyrockets in price during the Christmas market. And I also recently met a couple from Strasbourg, like an older retired couple, who were giving me all of these different ideas for travel in Strasbourg. And they were saying that actually the best time to travel there is in the spring or the fall. It's so beautiful and it's so calm because there's not a lot of tourism. So yeah, I would love to go to Strasbourg as well. And I also have a couple places that I've been, but very briefly, and I want to go back. Number one is Montpellier. I fell in love with that city as soon as I stepped into the central square. I was only there for, oh my gosh, maybe 36 hours. I stayed the night, but it was a very brief amount of time that I was there. I had the best food, the best seafood ever. And what was so cool is that the tram, like the public transportation, connects you from the city center to the beach, which is awesome. Can you imagine like spending a day at work, going out with friends downtown, and then just taking the tram to the beach? I just thought that was so cool. And I also really want to go back and travel more in Saumur and the Pays de la Loire, which is wine country in France outside of Bordeaux. There's a lot of castles in the Pays de la Loire as well, and you can do these bike routes where you bike from castle to castle, from winery to winery, and I would really love to do that. That's one of my biggest regrets actually, because I spent so much time living around the Pays de la Loire, and I just didn't research it enough. I didn't take the time to visit enough, and I really wish I had. So I'd love to go back and do that. And then the last point that I have on my list of areas that I'd like to revisit are the Alps. I'd love to do some more hiking in the Alps. When I was studying in Grenoble, I had really easy access, obviously, to the Alps. But again, I was studying, so I was very focused on my studies. And I didn't put enough time, I think, into researching different hiking routes, different skiing routes. I would love to go back in the winter and hike around all the little villages that are in the French Alps and just above the city of Grenoble. So hopefully that gives you some ideas for travel when you come to France. Robin says, do you keep an eye on real estate prospects for you and Jean? A better view, maybe a bigger apartment, less money? Yes, we do. It's definitely complicated though. In general, in France, the only way to get a loan for a house or for an apartment is if you have a permanent position and if you've passed your période d'essai, which is your trial period. And because I own my own business that I just opened, I don't have nearly enough credibility with the bank to take out a loan or be approved for a loan on a mortgage, or a mortgage is a loan, but on a mortgage. And so yeah, that is a little bit discouraging. That's going to be a hurdle we'll have to come across one day. And another thing as well for us is we have no idea where we want to settle. France is an option. Canada is an option. It's really hard, I think, to I just don't think that we know exactly where we want to be and exactly where we'd want to, buy something as a future home. I mean, as well, there is, the issue of price. If we want to live in Paris, there's just no way. It's very hard to afford appropriate living for a family. Like, we would probably want to buy something a little bigger to anticipate having a family in the future. I don't know. This is all hypothetical. But also, I don't think I want to spend my entire life in Paris. You guys know I'd like to move to Italy for a little bit. There is just a huge question mark, I think, on where exactly we're headed. But it is something that we're thinking about, because I think when you have a partner that you want to spend the rest of your life with, you really start to think about future projects, and buying a home obviously is one of them. But yeah, I think we need a couple more years, a little bit more time to figure out exactly what we're doing and what we want. And then the last question is from Mimi. She says, do you have Walmart or Target in Paris? We do not. We do not have anything like that. The closest thing would probably be Costco, and there's very few Costcos in France. I think there's probably 3. We do have different types of discount stores, and I actually want to film a shopping vlog and take you guys to those stores. We have places like Action or Jiffy, that are pretty much the equivalent of Walmart in the closest way possible. You're never going to have stores in a city like Paris or even in France that are these huge, colossal sized super centers that sell things at a really discounted price. That's not really in the French shopping culture, I would say. But yeah, there are a couple discount stores, you could say, like Action and Jiffy. They're going to be smaller than Target for sure, smaller than a Walmart. But yeah, I think in general, there is less of a focus on consumerism, I would say, in France and in Paris. I think, yeah, there's less of a focus on super centers and super shopping centers, and sales are also heavily regulated by the government. I don't know, I think about this quite often actually, because there is definitely a very different shopping culture between France and Canada or France and the US. I feel like it's a lot less of a consumer culture in France. People do less shopping, people accumulate less things. I don't know if it's because people have less space, or people prefer buying fresh products. I do think that there is more of a culture of making your own things, DIY, sewing your own purses, clothes, making your own foods. Like, a lot of people in France, a lot of families have gardens and then harvest everything from their garden and can the produce that they harvest, or put everything sous vide. This is a very typical aspect of French lifestyle, I would say. And so yeah, I just think it's so, I don't want to get too philosophical, but I just think it's a very different culture when it comes to shopping in France. And so we don't have a lot of stores like Walmart and Target, and I don't necessarily think that there's a huge need for them, if that makes sense. But yeah, very interesting question. I'll have to think about it. And I think that's it for today's podcast. That's all I had on my list of topics. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. Let me know what you guys think, especially about the color that we're going to paint our bedroom. I truly, honestly, I read all of the comments, and all of the comments, especially about our home decor, I really try to think about and put into place, like turning the couch, or I don't know, there's been so many, but I really do. Oh, the shelving, like all of those comments, I really appreciate them. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really good week, and I'll see you in the next one.